नमस्ते गाइस, ज्ञान गुण सागर में आपका फिर से स्वागत है। नाउ वेलकम टू द पार्ट 2 ऑफ द जीएस पेपर 1 एनालिसिस ऑफ 2025 मेंस क्वेश्चन. Okay, now let's look at the seventh question. This seventh question. What are tsunamis? How and where they are formed? What are their consequences? Explain the example. Explain with example. Look, here we will find some important points about tsunamis. About how tsunamis is formed. Tsunamis is formed by the seismic and non-seismic activities. Seismic activities include the earthquake, like plate tectonic displacement, plate tectonic. Okay, here it includes that tsunami. Tsunami are basically you have to explain in brief about you have to give introduction about tsunamis, how they form. So they are from the seismic and non-seismic activities, mainly in the region of islands. Like you have heard about the Tonga volcano. It can also erupt due to volcanic eruption. Got it? Tonga volcano. Recently in 2023, this volcano erupted. It is an underwater volcano in the Pacific Ocean. So you have to give example about this Pacific Ocean. In the Pacific Ocean. So now look at the next point. These are the mainly introduction. So how they are formed. About the formation. You can add the earthquake and other seismic activities, like there are also non-seismic activities formation of this tsunami, like formation of tsunami in Alaska due to glacier. Thwaites glacier in Antarctica. Okay, Thwaites glacier, and also you can add the Indian tsunami in 2004. Indian tsunami 2004. You can add these are the reasons where the tsunami is formed. Indian tsunami is formed due to the earthquake in magnitude of 9.1 magnitude earthquake in the Indian Ocean that led to the a major huge tsunami in 2004. That led to the development of National Disaster Fund in 2005. National Disaster Fund in 2005. Okay, so these are the points you can add here. Now, what are their consequences? The consequences, here in the consequences you can add consequences, destruction, okay. And next point you can add here is like a fall of water mixing with inland water, which make that water non-potable, means non-drinkable. That water becomes salty and brackish in nature that you cannot drink it. Okay, so these can be the points, few points. It damages the mangroves. And corals. And it also displays the people in the coastal area people destruction. Like specifically the people of Jakarta, you can find the Indonesian people, highly displaced during 2004 tsunami, and also the people of this Andaman Nicobar Island. Notice those people are displaced in the 2004 tsunami. So these are some of the consequences. You can also add here the other consequences, like under the mining Mainly it travel with the great speed. Mainly travel with great speed. Also encroaches. Also encroaches to cities. Cities like floods in Mumbai. Sometimes you can find due to tsunamis. Floods in Mumbai or the coastal area, because of this type of tsunamis, the capital of Indonesia has been shifted from Jakarta to Nusantara. From Jakarta to Nusantara. Actually, this is the correct pronunciation. You can find it on the Google. Nusantara. They shifted their capital just because of this type of tsunami and coastal area damages. They shifted their capital. These are the consequences. Explain with example. Example, you can add that tsunami for 2004. Just we have mentioned 2004 tsunami. And second, the Tonga tsunami. Tonga tsunami in 2023, and also the Alaskan tsunami. And Japan frequently face tsunamis because due to earthquake happening in the Pacific, a ring of fire in the Pacific Ocean. Alaska tsunami, Tonga tsunami, Alaska tsunami, Japanese tsunami. These are the few examples you can add. Japanese tsunami. These are some few examples you can add here. Okay. Now let's move to the next question. The question number 8. How does the smart cities in India address the issues of urban poverty and distributive justice? First of all, understand what is smart city. The concept of smart city was introduced in India in 2015. Smart city because there was a huge urban population rising and the people are living in very difficult condition. So here you can add the smart city mission in 2015. Here the center selected 100 cities to convert them or to develop them into smart city. You can add various introductory point like as you shoot some good introductory point like smart city will be the new opportunities for the development of India. You can add that type of introductory point. 100 cities to develop them into small city, smart cities. Okay, so next point we can add here how many smart cities have been developed in India. So basically Ahmedabad smart cities. Different smart cities have focused on the different areas. For example, Ahmedabad smart cities focus on the employment. Indore smart city have focused on the cleanliness, and there are few more smart cities like Chandigarh focused on the drainage system. This is the first planned development city on the Harappan line, on the Indus Valley civilization line. Chandigarh is the first planned city. Okay, so let's move to this point. Smart city address how it will address the urban poverty. Look, urban poverty will be addressed by this point like smart city mission will provide universal supply of water. 24/7, better energy like electricity, because nowadays you can find that many smart cities, many major cities or metropolitan cities, there is a huge population of urban poverty. Like there are more poor people in the urban society, and they are living in a very miserable condition. Got it? The electricity, it can be the point. Like the points that have government mentioned in the smart city. Okay, universal supply of water 24 into 7, electricity, and mobility, mobility, transportation, proper health coverage, proper health coverage. These are the some points where government focus on the smart city mission, proper health coverage, connectivity, like you can mention connectivity, this in the transportation sector, connectivity, living condition, improved living condition. You can add the improved living condition. Got it? Colonies for laborers. Like you may have seen the laborers are living in a miserable condition in Dharavi in Mumbai, the biggest slum area of Asia. You can add this point. Government, because before making the policies and plans, you have to look into the problems. What are the problems that urban poverty people are facing? Basically, you have to look at those points. So government wish to, like in the urban, like smart city mission, government also planning to, like universal education, universal education, use of technology, use of technology, for any plan and development, the poor people should be partner, not the victim, because during some planning and during the redevelopment process, the poor people or the people living in the slum area, they are being relocated. So they have to face various problems like settlement and something else. So they have to make partner instead of victim. They should not be made victim of any development project, but should be partner. These are the important points you can mention. And distributive justice, these are the points you can add to the distributive justice. Got it? Like in this process of redevelopment, you can give employment to those poor people, employment to those poor people. So these are the important points you can mention. Now let's look at the next question. The ethos of civil service in India stand for the combination of professionalism and nationalistic consciousness. Look, this question belongs to GS4. I don't know how UPSC added to GS1, but this question belongs to GS4. But since it has been given in the GS1, we have to discuss this question. Alright, let's discuss this question. The ethos of civil service in India stands for the combination of professionalism and nationalistic consciousness. Look, you have to give a good introduction to this point. About the civil service, because from where the civil service started. You can add the Cornwallis point, Cornwallis Code, Charter Act 1853, Government of India Act 1919. You can add this point because these are the steps where the development of civil service took place in India. These are the few steps. Okay, so these are the points. for the combination of professionalism and nationalistic consciousness. So the professionalism will come from here. Professionalism. So it's a British legacy. The civil service in India, it's a British legacy. So we can add here the point that professionalism comes from the British training system. British training system. British training system. It's look like an allied job where professionalism has to be maintained. Okay, it's an allied job. British training system, allied job, professionalism. We can also add the points like allied job, professionalism, permanent in job of allied, which teaches the value, of professionalism. Like if you're dealing with any problems in the rural area or any urban area, you have to work like professional, because this is the allied job. The work of civil service is an allied job, and this is done by highly expert and qualified people. So professionalism have to the point of civil service. Okay, nationalistic consciousness. Here you can add the points like why the nationalistic consciousness has been preferred, because when it is inducted in Indian civil service, because earlier it was ICS, later converted to IAS, Indian Administrative Service. The value of India, like the movement of international movement. Okay, so and the values of great leaders. Here some of the points you can add here. The values of great leader and love towards nation, and patriotism. This is a patriotism. Love towards nation is itself is a patriotism. Okay, love towards nation, patriotism. These are the important points you can mention about nationalistic consciousness. Okay, so because this belongs to a GS4 question, this is basically GS4. So these are the important points. Either you can add some more points also. These are the basic and crisp point you can add here. I don't know why UPSC added to this, like in GS1. Do you think that globalization resulted in the only an aggressive consumer culture justify your answer? Look, you have to mention about the globalization, the impact of globalization. Here in the globalization, what are the impact of globalization? Because I know you will definitely give a good introduction to the globalization, because globalization is a result of when all the countries coming together or togetherness. You can give a better introductory point to this. Okay, so now globalization, and here you can add the impact of globalization. What are the impact of globalization on consumerism? For example, here you can give the example of McDonald's. Are they becoming aggressive consumer? Because nowadays, in the living of urban culture, people living in the urban culture, they are in rush of their job. Like both male and female, both partners are working, so home cooked food they prefer less. They prefer for easily and fast made food. And this food like McDonald's, Starbucks, these are available at cheap cost and door-to-door service. So these are one of the aggressive, aggressive consumer culture, where this McDonald's and some of this Zepto, you can find Zepto, they are giving 10-minute delivery service. 10-minute delivery service. Swiggy, Zomato, this giving 10-minute delivery service. So nowadays consumer in the in the town or in the metropolitan city, they are become more aggressive consumer, like they are more preferring to this Swiggy and Zomato instead of home cooked food, because it takes time and they are in rush and they all are doing jobs. So you can add this point. Okay, so another point you can add is rush, advertisement. They advertise a lot. Advertisement where celebrities are called to advertise their products. Celebrities, here you must have seen the advertisement of what we call them, chewing gums or Sting. The advertisement of Sting. Here celebrities advertise those products where consumers tend to buy because their favorite celebrities are advertising them. So these are one of the aggressive consumerism. These are the effect of globalization. But here you can also find that globalization can not only mean to aggressive culture, aggressive consumerism, but also it brings about globalization also brought the what points you can add here, I have not prepared about this, but what points you can add here. Globalization also brought the homemade food popularity. Like nowadays you are seeing in the globalization they are advertising about the homemade food. Okay, homemade food, and about the zero calories food, and also introduction or popularization of rural goods, made in India food, Indian goods made in India, Indian culture, Indian cuisines like McDonald's is selling McDonald's aloo tikki. So this can also be like a positive point. The globalization leads to popularization of homemade or popularization of Indian cuisines, where the globalized multinational companies popularizing the Indian cuisines or local products. You can add here instead, local products, popularization of local products. And also the local products of India, what we call that, handloom products is being demanded in India, is being demanded all over the world. Indian style jewelries, all over world demand. You can also add some important point like globalization giving various opportunities, equality to men and women, where women also preferred in some kind of jobs. Equality, it also promotes equality. Yeah, these are the important point which you can add. The impacts of globalization and the aggressive consumer, that we can say here that the globalization is not only the promoting aggressive consumerism, but it also promote the native things like Indian cuisines, local products. It also promote local products and make popular at the global market, because it gives opportunity via social media. To the local producer to make and popularize their goods in different countries. Got it? These are the points you can add here. Now let's look at the next point. Mahatma Phule's writing and efforts, social reform, touch issues of almost all subaltern classes. Here you have to give importance to the Mahatma Phule's writing. Mahatma Phule's writing, Mahatma Jyotirao Phule, Mahatma Jyotirao Phule. What is the importance of his writings? Like he wrote Gulamgiri. Another he started Satya Sodhak Samaj. Actually it's not a book, but it is one of also his, like in various occasions he delivered his speech on Satya Sodhak Samaj. Next point could be the Shetkariyacha Asu. Shetkariyacha Asud. Here, these are the important writings of Mahatma Jyotirao Phule. Here in the Gulamgiri, he mentioned about the Shudras. Ati Shudras, and different untouchables peoples. Okay, different untouchables people he mentioned in the Gulamgiri. So here in the subaltern approach, because in the what is subaltern approach? Subaltern approach, it mentions about the peoples of whom, like many historians, they have written about the dynasties and the impact of dynasties, but nobody cares about the people who are living in villages or the normal people like untouchable Shudra. Nobody has written about them, but Jyotirao Phule have included these people in his Gulamgiri. Got it? So these are the points you can mention in the Satya Sodhak Samaj, in various speeches at different occasions. He mentions about the truth. He mentions about the truth, and especially the importance of individualism. Like every people is important, whether he belong to different caste is not determined by birth. He also wrote that in Shetkariyacha Asu, he mentioned about the farmers, like importance of farmers and the problem that farmers have faced due to extreme tax collection by the Britishers and zamindars. You can mention this point. Okay, Shetkariyacha Asud, here in this point he mentions. So these are the important writings of Mahatma Phule. Okay, so you can mention about this point, and also about subaltern class, because how subaltern class is not mentioned in different books, like many historians have not mentioned about these people. So the Mahatma Phule's writing mention about these people and highlights their problems, their crisis. Okay, so now let's move to the next point. Trace India's consolidation process during early phase of independence in terms of polity, economy, education, international relations. Look, here in this point, basically this is the question. Trace India's consolidation process during early phase of independence in terms of polity, economy, education. Early phase of independence, India's consolidation process. So here in the consolidation process, we will mention about the process of consolidation in different aspects, like in economic sector, like in polity, like in international relation, in society. So first we will look at the political. Okay, in political, we will talk about like India got independence, like Indian princely state. After India got independent, Indian princely states joined India with the effort of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and V.N. Menon. Okay, next point could be the reorganization of state reorganization of state, basically in 1956. The first state reorganized in 1954, Maharashtra and Gujarat, but the Reorganization of State Act passed in 1956, where various states been reorganized. Okay. Here you can mention about the third in political reorganization of state happened. Writing of constitution. Writing of constitution. These are the, because we have to write in this question in 250 words, so we have to write a long answer. So writing of constitution. Okay. So now next point could be writing of constitution. Political integration could be. What are the else point we can add here? Reorganization of writing constitution. Indian princely state joined India in 1956. Okay, so we will think later. Now let's come to the next point. We have mentioned about the polity. Now let's mention about economy. What economy? Economic sector. Okay, economy. Consolidation in the field of economy. In economy, we can mention about the planning system. Okay, planning system. We have more stuff to write in the in economic system, like planning system, planning. It's not planning. It's planning commission. Planning commission. Okay. Next, we come to the point like 5-year plans. 5-year plans. Industrialization. Here you can mention some point like the model. Here you can like P.C. Mahalanobis model in the example. P.C. Mahalanobis model. This is second 5-year plan. First year plan is a Harrod-Domar model. Harrod-Domar model. Next you can write the development or establishment of different institutions like AIIMS, Science, IIT Kharagpur was the first to be established in the 1954. IITs. Okay, so these are the points. You can also mention here about agriculture. White Revolution. You can mention here White Revolution. It's after independence. You can mention about the Green Revolution. You can mention the agriculture sector itself. In the agriculture point, make it a sub point and write about the White Revolution and the Green Revolution. Okay, so these are the points. Let's come to the point of which point we left with. We are left with economy, education. We have also mentioned about education in the AIIMS, II, Indian Institute of Science. We have mentioned about education. Now let's move to the international relation. In the international relation, we can mention about the non-alignment movement. Okay, Panchsheel program. We can mention about the Panchsheel program, non-alignment movement, and we can also mention about the UN and India's policies towards other nations. Like we can mention this in the Panchsheel program itself, and we can mention about the Russia-India friendship, 1971 war, 1971, where Russia supported India. We can mention that point. Okay, so these are the some important points we can mention. Now let's come to the point which the French Revolution has enduring relevance to the contemporary world. Explain how French Revolution impacted the policies or the growth or the ideology of the countries in today's world. So definitely we have to deal with the French Revolution. We have to discuss the French Revolution. So French Revolution, it was started in 1789. So here comes the ideology of liberty, equality, fraternity. Got it? So here comes the ideology of liberty, equality, fraternity, and also these are some ideology which the many nations, many countries have adopted from the French Revolution. Here comes the liberty, equality, fraternity. Next comes the point of what we can write here, against the monarchy. We can write against the monarchy, against feudalism, liberal thoughts, will of the people. Like Russian evolution has been influenced by the thoughts of various scholars like Rousseau, through his writing, influenced the French Revolution. It is said that the French Revolution is the birth or is the vision of Rousseau. Like thoughts of Rousseau. Here it's mentioned about the free will. Free will, it means the will of the people, will of the society, will of the citizens. Here we can mention that with this, the thoughts of Russia means the ideology from Russia, that French, that French has make various contribution in different revolution of the world. For example, if we can talk about the free will, here it inspires the Arab Spring in 2014. Long after 300 years, not 300 years, but 250 years later, French Revolution impacted the Arab Spring and others also. Got it? So we can write this some of the important points, like the importance of this. What do we say? French Revolution. Got it? Here we can mention. Now let's come to this point. Give a geographical explanation of distribution of offshore oil reserve of the world. Offshore oil reserve of the world. How they are different from the onshore occurrence of oil reserve. It is a short point. We can discuss it in a very short point. Okay. So let's come to this point. First, we will make a chart. Offshore, onshore. Just discuss the importance. What is offshore and onshore? Look, onshore oil fields are the oil fields in the inland boundaries. For example, in the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia, these are the onshore oil fields because these are the countries which are rich in the oil reserve. And the offshore is come in the oceanic, like oceanic extraction of oil, because this can be seen in like Russia, North Sea, Venezuela, Brazil, Trinidad here. And here in the onshore basically we can mention about here Iran, the countries having oil reserves here. Okay, so these are some points. These are the cheap extraction because here require very less like sources, technological sources very less. Here it requires high, costly. It is costly. Offshore is costly because you have to extract the oil from the ocean and you need a highly mechanized technologies. Got it? Costly, and this is cheap. So let's come to the next point. Offshore. In the offshore, it will comes about. It is highly distributed entire ocean. Like we have mentioned the Russia, North Sea. We can also mention about the Atlantic Sea. Okay, distributed, and this is less distributed. This is less distributed. It can be found only in the few countries like USA have it and the Middle East country have it. Other countries do not have it. For example, there is very less source of crude oil in India. We do not have very large reserve. We have only few places like in Assam, in Mumbai. There are only two places where we can find oil reserve. Other places do not have these oil reserves. Got it? In Assam and in Mumbai. So these are the important points you can mention about the offshore and onshore. Well, how they are different from onshore occurrence of oil? Answer. This is depleting. Onshore is depleting. Depleting. And the offshore will, we do not have found like how much it is available, because it can be vast, it can be very much, it can be vast, but we can, as far as we have found, we have very less onshore oil reserve. We may have offshore reserve of oil very much, but we have very limited onshore oil reserve. ओके, तो थैंक यू गाइस। नेक्स्ट वीडियो के लिए हम नेक्स्ट पार्ट इसका जल्दी लेके आएंगे, ठीक है, धन्यवाद।